Man search for meaning, page 34. After hours of delay, the train left the station. And there was the stream, my stream. The young lads who had a number of years of camp life behind them, and for whom such journey was a great event, stared attentively through the peephole. I began to beg them, to entreat them, to let me stand in front for one moment only. I tried to explain how much a look through that window meant to me just then. My request was refused with rudeness and cynicism. You lived here all those years. Well, then you have seen quite enough already. In general, there was also a cultural hibernation in the camp. There were two exceptions to this: politics and religion. Politics were talked about everywhere in camp, almost continuously. The discussions were based chiefly on rumors, which were snapped up and passed around avidly. The rumors about the military situation were usually contradictory. They followed one another rapidly and succeeded only in making a contribution to the war of nerves that was waged in the minds of all the prisoners. Many times, hopes of a speedy end to the war, which had been fanned by optimistic rumors, were disappointed. Some men lost all hope, but it was the optimists who were the most irritating companions. The religious interest of the prisoners, as far and as soon as it developed, was the most sincere imaginable. The depth and vigor of religious beliefs often surprised and moved a new arrival. Most impressive in this connection were impoverished prayers or services in a corner of a hut or in the darkness of the locked cattle truck in which we were brought back home from a distant work site, tired, hungry, and frozen in our ragged clothing. In the winter and spring of 1945, there was an outbreak of typhus which infected nearly all the prisoners. The most mortality was great among the weak. The mortality was great among the weak, who had to keep on with their hard work as long as they possibly could. The quarters for the sick were most inadequate. There were practically no medicines or attendants. Some of the symptoms of the disease were extremely disagreeable, an irrepressible aversion to even the scrap of food, which was an additional danger to life, and terrible attacks of delirium. The worst case of delirium was suffered by a friend of mine who thought that he was dying and wanted to pray. In his delirium, he could not find the words to do so. To avoid these attacks of delirium, I tried, as did many of the others, to keep awake for most of the night. For hours, I composed speeches in my mind. Eventually, I began to reconstruct the manuscript, which I had lost in the disinfection chamber of Auschwitz, and scribbled the key words in shorthand on tiny scraps of paper. Occasionally, a scientific debate developed in camp. Once I witnessed something I had never seen, even in my normal life, although it lay somewhat near my own professional interests, a spiritualistic seance. I had been invited to attend by the camp's chief doctor, also a prisoner, who knew that I was a specialist in psychiatry. The meeting took place in his small private room in the sick quarters. A small circle had gathered, among them, quite illegally, the warrant officer from the sanitation squad. One man began to invoke the spirits with a kind of prayer. The camp's clerk sat in front of a blank sheet of paper without any conscious intention of writing. During the next 10 minutes, after which time the seance was terminated, because of the medium's failure to conjure the spirits to appear, his pencil slowly drew lines across the paper, forming quite legibly V-A-E-V. It was asserted that the clerk had never learned Latin, and he had never before heard the words Vae Victis, woe to the vanquished. In my opinion, he must have heard them once in his life without recollecting them, and they must have been available to the spirit of his subconscious mind at that time, a few months before our liberation and the end of the war.